All right, quick recap of chapter 5.1 in our calculus book. First of all, the extreme value theorem. The extreme value theorem says that if a function is continuous on a closed interval, it has a max and minimum value. Where do we find extrema? Extrema are found at one, critical points. F prime of x equal to 0, or f prime of x does not exist. Note, not all critical points are extrema, so it's important that you test them. 2, endpoints. I can't stress this enough because frequently my students, year after year, check the critical points and forget to check the endpoints. Must check both. And what else did we do? We found that the derivative with respect to x of the absolute value of some function u is equal to u divided by the absolute value of u times the derivative of u with respect to x. Chain rule. One of my students asked me the other day, why do we always write it twice, one with x and then one with this u and then the du dx? Well, the derivative of x is 1. So if we have an x in there, then du dx becomes dx dx, and we don't have to deal with it. So we always just think of this as the chain rule. And then the final thing I would tell you about this section is when we're talking about graphical analysis, and usually this is we're trying to figure out, is it a minima or is it a minimum, singular, or maximum, or neither? And what we can do is we can look at end behavior. And you may remember end behavior models from way back then. What happens as x goes to infinity? What happens as x goes to negative infinity? And then what we discover is that if there is a minimum or maximum, if your function's going down here and down there, well, then it has to be a maximum because there are no other critical points. This function can't do that, because if it did, there'd be a whole bunch of other critical points. If there's only one critical point, you find out what the end behavior is, and that tells you whether it's a maximum or a minimum, or neither, for that matter. If this went up, of course, then this would be neither. So, end behavior models are pretty useful for deciding whether things are minima, maxima, or neither. And the graphical analysis is just sort of thinking about the graph in order to determine, rather than doing a whole bunch of fiddly little calculations. Oh, let's go a little bit less than the value. Let's go a little bit more than the value and do lots of calculations. Sometimes it can be easier to just say, what does the graph do as we go flying off in either direction? Okay, that's everything from 5.1. And we'll be back next week with 5.2. Again, thanks for watching and hope you learned something.